So I want to give you this quick demo on how to use the sky replacement tool in Photoshop and then move that sky replacement into After Effects and then give it a little bit of motion that makes sense for the image that you've got. Now, there may be some other ways to do this that may be even better. I don't know. This is just the way that I've figured out how to do it. So to begin, if you have this image and I want to replace the sky inside of Photoshop, I can go to Edit, and then, well, I gotta select my layer here. Edit, and then sky replacement. So with my sky replacement dialog box here, I can do a lot of different things. First of all, I can choose from different sky images and things like that, and it will automatically replace those sky images in the background of my image. Now, one of the things that you'll notice with this picture in particular that it's replacing is that I can still see a little bit of my original sky back there, and that's because this fade edge is in place. And so while it may look pretty good, you know, in Photoshop occasionally when you have these images that you've put in and you've got this faded edge, but the problem resides when you move it to After Effects and then you start to shift your new sky around in space, and the existing sky that you can see back behind it stays in the same place, so that can be a little bit problematic. So if I'm moving this to After Effects, I'm probably going to move that shift edge to 0, so there's no, fade edge to 0, so there's no fading between what was there and what's there now. It's just totally replacing the sky with, the new sky. So you can pick whatever sky you want. Now, another thing that I would do, you can also include your own if you wanted to add a button and, create a new sky preset and include your own sky if you wanted to. So another thing that I might do, you can leave these other settings around, but one of the things that I'll also do is scale it up a little bit. Because when I move to After Effects, scaling it up allows me, maybe I'll move it up to like 200 or so. So scaling it up will allow me to move this sky around in the background and give it a little bit of motion. So you can even move it around, while you're previewing here. I can drag this around. You can see you wouldn't want a bunch of movement, but you can subtly move this across the horizon and it'll make the clouds look like they're moving and give it a little motion inside of After Effects. You couldn't necessarily do that if your scale wasn't 200 or above 100% or wasn't past the bounds of what this image is, because if you move it this way, you just get a black line or a black bar right here because you run out of space on your image. So another thing that I'll do, again, just scale this up. So move the fade edge down, scale it up at least above 100%. I'm going to bring this out as layers and just choose OK. Now, you're given a few different things. You're given these. You're given you're given all the sky replacement group in an entirely new group here. It's in its own folder. I'm also given my sky. I'm given some foreground lighting, and you can turn those on and off and kind of see what they do. Now, one of the things that I'll do before I move into After Effects, one of the things that's necessary, first of all, what I want to do is I want to be able to use this sky without necessarily the mask, or I need kind of the mask separate from the sky so that it can work right in After Effects. So first of all, I might take all these out of the group just so that this isn't nested in a nested comp inside of After Effects. So I can move those all out of the group to kind of simplify it a little bit when I move into After Effects. Now another thing that I'm going to do is, like I said, I want to separate this foreground from its mask, and I also want to unlink these two layers. So I'm going to right click on here and I'm just going to choose unlink. You can't see that, but it's unlink layers there. So I've unlinked those two. And now what I want to do is I'm going to take this and create a track matte with this layer that I'm going to be able to use inside of After Effects. Because if I just bring this into After Effects, it just kind of it applies this mask and erases those pixels. So if I were to move this image, in After Effects, what it'll end up doing, I'll just duplicate this layer and show you what it ends up doing. So if I apply that, what ends up happening is something like this. It gives me this layer. So if I end up starting to move it, it's erased all those pixels. So that's not what I necessarily want. So what I want to do is be able to separate this foreground from the mask, so I can use them independently inside of After Effects. So what I'll do is take this layer and make this its own layer. So I'm going to hold the Command key down or Control on Windows, and I'm going to select that mask. And I'm going to make a brand new layer, and then I'm going to fill it with a color. I'll just fill it with black. I'm going to hold Option Delete, or you could do Edit Fill and fill with black, and I'll fill that with black. So now this mask is kind of separate from that original. Now I'm going to get rid of it from this layer altogether. We can hide this. I'm going to get rid of it. I'll just drag it to the trash, and I want to make sure that I don't apply it. I don't want to erase the pixels. I just want to delete that mask, and then I can deselect or Command D everything. Select, deselect. So now I've got my background. It already has, any color adjustments that were given from the sky replacement. It has the foreground lighting that was applied. It also has the sky in there, and it has this track matte that I'm going to be able to use, or layer that I'm going to be able to use for my track matte. So I'll just go ahead and label that track matte and sky. So I have got both of these layers. And again, my sky still much larger than the viewable image, so if I move it around, it's going to be all right to move around inside of After Effects. So now I'm just going to save my image. So File, Save. Okay. Now I'm going to go into After Effects and open up this Photoshop file. So I'm going to go to After Effects. I'm going to double click. I'm going to find my sky replacement. I'm going to bring this in as a composition and retain the layer sizes. So now that I've got that, and choose OK. Composition, retain layer sizes, choose OK. And I'll double click on my composition. So here's my composition, and again, it has my sky in here along with this track matte. Now the nice thing about my track matte is I don't need to view it, but on my sky here, I can change my track matte to utilize the track matte layer. So as soon as this track matte is above it, it's not visible. I'm just utilizing it as a track matte, or to be able to give transparency to the area that I need it for the sky. So I'll use alpha track matte for the sky. So now my sky is in there. It looks good. It looks the way that it should be. And if I wanted to add some subtle keyframed movement, notice how large the sky is. Since I unlinked it, now it's not even, if I move it around, it's got a lot on either side that I could move around. Now, I could do just that if I just wanted to make some subtle movement. If I wanted to go to position keyframe a position there, and then move out a few seconds, and then move my sky just subtly to the side, and that could be the extent of my animation. What can give it a little bit more credibility, what can give it a little more realistic, lifelike, more natural, I guess, looking movement in the clouds would be, you've got kind of a parallax motion with clouds. So the clouds in the back are probably not going to be moving as quickly as the clouds in the front. So if you do want to do something different besides just kind of scaling up over time or moving from right to left, what you can do is do kind of a more advanced movement with your clouds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the effects and presets, and I'm going to type in the word transformation, and I'm going to find under distort this transform effect. And so if I apply this to the sky, I'm going to get a little bit more advanced effects to my sky. And what I can do is, first of all, I'm going to I want to skew these clouds. So I want to skew them from side to side. If I just take and skew this thing from side to side, I can rotate this sort of thing, or I can skew it if I maybe turn this to 90 degrees, right? And now if I do rotate, now notice I'm getting a little bit of rotation from side to side there. So that's not getting me what I want. So what I'll do is I need to move my anchor point. So if I move my anchor point, skew from side to side. I've got this skewing, and so that's kind of moving, but what the problem is I'm moving from that center point. The top of the clouds are moving, the bottom of the clouds are moving. What I want the clouds to move faster at the bottom and really slow at the top, and I don't want it to move in the opposite direction above this anchor point here. So what I'll do, I'm going to go back and set this to 0. I need to move my anchor point. I'm going to take my anchor point and I'm going to move it down to the bottom left because I want it to skew from there. Notice when you move your anchor point to the bottom left, I'm also going to have to use my move tool and kind of shift my layer back into place the way that I want it. here. So I've got my clouds back into place. So now notice what happens if as I skew this. I've got this at 90 degrees and I skew it. Now the clouds are starting to move much more naturally across the sky. The clouds at the top are moving faster than the ones at the bottom because it's skewing kind of from this bottom corner here, and that looks a little bit more natural. So now if I come in and I want to do a little bit more of a natural movement with my clouds, I can come in and I can keyframe this skew. So I can say, all right, let's start from this side and we'll keyframe that skew there at -6, and then we'll move out a few seconds, and then we'll skew it, you know, across this way. I can only go so far. Obviously, if I go too far, I'm going to be seeing my clouds from behind, and this might be even a little bit much. But now I've got this motion of the clouds that's moving across, where the clouds up top are moving a lot faster than the clouds toward the bottom, and that gives it a little bit more of a natural motion. Now I can also tweak with this as far as my anchor point and move this up to this corner, you know, just so that it resides on the baseline of this kind of horizon here if I wanted to do that. But those are the basics of maybe moving your sky replaced sky from Photoshop into After Effects, the way that I know how anyway.